a very strange cutscene came out. A very good cutscene, but I guess strange timing. You had your thoughts on that already. But yeah, it was a good cutscene. Essentially, I mean, the biggest, baddest villain, the main enemy of the entire Destiny franchise of 10 years, had their origin story revealed in a cutscene in the middle of a season, which I think is the main kind of criticism. The recurring theme, absolutely everyone in their Goldfish has said, is, you know, this should have been part of Lightfall. It was basically like it was a cutscene on the same, probably even bigger than the Witch Queen one, where you saw the origins of the Hive and how the Witness like tricked them, how that was like a big revelation. This is, I would say, I'm not sure if you'd agree, even bigger, but it was just this like mid-season thing. And Bungie has said how, you know, that was always the plan. We deliberately left. They even said we left Lightfall open-ended so that we could tell more stories in the seasons, but I don't think that's really the best call, because the time to do the big stuff is in Lightfall. A lot of players aren't playing during the season, so a lot of people would have missed this. I even saw, I think as of right now, the cutscene on YouTube has 64k views, which is not a lot for probably the most important cutscene in Destiny franchise. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think I'd agree with practically everything you put out there, from this should have been in Lightfall to it's a phenomenal cutscene. I think, you're completely correct about the impact of it as well. The Witch Queen cutscene was a big deal because we'd known those characters for a very long time. Nearly a decade's worth of story had built to that shocking revelation moment of like, the Hive had been lied to this whole time. But I think this is even bigger because, of course, it is all about the foundations of the very world. It affects the Unveiling lore, which was literally the closest thing Destiny had to a creation story, and basically sat there and said, no, this is all allegory, which, as far as retroactive continuity is concerned, is really consistent with the way the Witness has been operating. Like, anybody who sat there and took Unveiling at face value in the first place was making a mistake, because it's very clear it was just a perspective and that someone there was pretty bound to have a biased opinion. But when it comes to the actual knock-on effect of all of that, and then seeing what the Witness is and why it's pursuing the Traveler, and even what the final shape is, all of that has massive consequences. I think you're absolutely correct. Like, this is a way bigger deal when it comes to the actual impact of the cutscene than anything we've seen before, which, again, is why I think it's fair for everybody to make that criticism of this should have been in Lightfall. You know, there are a bunch of people who would have bought, and this I think is the real cut and thrust of what it comes down to. There are people who will have bought Lightfall, but not the story expansion season pass that comes with it and the extended edition. They'll be here for the big expansion drop, not for the seasons afterwards. And ultimately, that means they're going to go in and they're going to get to final shape if they come back, and they're going to be like, what do you mean we now know what the Witness is? We know what the Veil is now too? Yeah, what's going on with this? What do you mean we know how to traverse the portal? Like, you know, they've basically, it feels as though they've taken a few legs off a spider and thrown them into different seasons so that we can go and reconnect them and make the whole creature again. But by that same token, you know, you still cut the legs off the damn thing. You're not supposed to do that. I don't know, like your point about like the bigger concerns of players being like, this should have dropped in Lightfall and it should not have separated the story out into seasons so they could continue to tell that story over time. I completely agree. Like, I'm a proponent of seasonal storytelling, but I don't think that this should have been the topics it should have been around. Like, create a complete story with the Lightfall expansion like they did with Witch Queen, and then expand topics out from there, and you're doing pretty well. But, you know, with this formula that they've decided to go with, every big reveal is going to be laced with that poison pill of this should have been in Lightfall. You know, like, we literally got the biggest story revelation we've ever seen in 10 years. We understand why our ultimate enemy is chasing the Traveler, what it is, and everything else in between, even down to the reason why it uses specific elements of darkness. And the biggest takeaway from that is this should have been in the expansion, not the season. It's just, yeah, you know.
So
I will,
go on.
Yeah. I will say, though, to your point again, it's an amazing cutscene. Yeah. It adds a lot of important context, and it absolutely is important for the story, because even if the idea behind the plot is not the most groundbreaking thing in the universe, it's groundbreaking in the sense that we finally have some of the bigger questions of Destiny answered. You know, we know the darkness that we've been talked about for a long time is, and we can define the difference between it and the Witness, and we can talk about everything in between. We know what the veil is, kind of a little bit more. Like there's a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So delivery wasn't too great in the timing of where it was placed, but the thing itself is very, very good. So we actually found out what the witness is. As I guess a lot of us suspected, it did seem like it was a collection of multiple people, and that's exactly what it is. Basically, an ancient race that is all merged into one being that is angry, that tried to obviously use the Traveler in evil purposes and combine it with the veil, and then the Traveler said no, and then it started traveling, doing the thing, it left, and then now it's just this ancient enemy that's been chasing it, and that's pretty much where we are, and it's trying to enact some kind of final shape, which we'll get into, but it is it was a very cool cutscene, and it's kind of interesting to just know what the witness even is. So, you can actually, it is defeatable. It's not just like this, unimaginable godlike thing that you don't even know how, like, is it even a boss? Can you even like shoot it? Like, what is it? But now we kind of know, okay, it's a thing, and there's only one of them. There's not like, a whole race of all of them. It's just one witness that seems to be controlling all these pyramids that are like mostly empty tombs. Obviously some of them have disciples in them, and some of them have like taken, but for the most part, at least we now know who the enemy is. We know it's kind of, it can be killed at somewhat, and they've talked about facing the witness, so we know it's going to be a thing that will happen. I guess the raid of Final Shape, we would assume, but it was strange. Still don't know what the Traveler is, which I guess is kind of cool. I think it's nice that it's a bit of a mystery, because I don't know, it's kind of like the magician never revealing its trick. The fact the Traveler has been silent this whole time for even 12 years. It was the first thing that was ever shown off in Destiny, just the white ball above Earth. It's Traveler's like probably the first thing ever shown off about Destiny, even 2-3 years before Destiny was revealed. Even in Halo, there was the image of
that
Earth.
ODST.
Yeah. So the Traveler is ancient as far as Destiny goes, but we just saw it like kind of buried underground on their home planet, which we still don't, I guess we'll probably find out why or what's the deal there, but it was just buried on the planet. So we still know what the Traveler is. We know what the witness is. It is a pretty cool story. You can obviously draw ties. One thing I noticed, you can kind of draw similarities between, I guess, the evolution of any life in the universe, of similar to the origins of humans. We were like nomadic and just traveling and hunting and moving around. And then once we found technology, which in our case was like farming and community and building towns and settlements, then you build up. And then there's this theme of the darkness, which I guess is kind of a metaphor for like corruption of using technology, getting a bit too smart for our own good, inventing things that kind of are to our demise, and weapons. And you can draw similarities between the story that I saw them say in the cutscene about just this race getting corrupted by power and then merging into one, which I guess is kind of similar to humans, becoming like globalized and all one with the internet, and maybe before our brains get uploaded to some AI cloud. But it's definitely a cool origin story. What do you think about the origins of the witness and just the character in general? What do you think about that?
I think it ties in really well with the ideas of what they've presented, with the idea of light representing chaos and darkness representing control.
Yeah.
And where the logical extremes of those run, because, talk about the homogenization of an entire people into a single being. You're effectively describing the control aspect really well, but it also runs pretty well with all the other things that have come with that, If you were to describe it in a political sense, it's a very dictatorial one, where you have one singular opinion that rules over everybody else. And it's very much in that line. When you look at the witness and its tools, it desires control. The reason why it uses stasis as a darkness power as one of its core things thus far is purely based on the fact that stasis is the element of control. If you actually use stasis, it's manifesting in different ways, but it's about exerting your individual will on the universe. And that's the key element. It's not how stasis presents in its unique way, it's how that unique person controls the universe around them. The aspect of control through thought is also something you see in the Taken. They are literally hollowed out, much like the Scorn and the Wrathborn and loads of other of the servants of Xivu, arath, and the Witness. All of them are mindless. None of them get their own opinions. They just serve without question, because that's what the Witness sees as the best thing they can do. It's all about that aspect of control. And they really honed down on that for a very long period of time. And if they continue on that particular front of things, they're really nailing those different aspects of it. I think as well, if you look at the flip side of the coin and talk about light and how it links in with chaos, there is a certain degree to which a lot of the things that have happened kind of make sense in the idea that the light is almost cruel when it comes to the chaos that it invokes and tries to portray, but also inevitably it does give decisions and possibilities to people. And the biggest example of that is the Lucent Hive. You know, we literally had cutscenes of everyone in Zavala's office commiserating the fact that the Hive were also chosen. Zavala slamming his desk for very good reason, because that's, you know, that feels like betrayal. But by that same token, you know, the Lucent Hive have also kind of, and this is something I'm sure we'll get into as we kind of move on to the final end of the Season of the Deep and what that's leading to, you know, they are also kind of leading us in the direction of we can now go through that portal. And without the Lucent Hive being what they are, and without the decisions of Savathun and her knowledge, you know, we're kind of stuck in this place where we would lose, you know? Like, there's a kind of brilliance to that contrast where it's really making us sit and question. And it ties into this idea of is there a correct side to this? You know, like the people of the Witnesses' original predecessor species, they were trying to control the chaos of everything. And there are so many times when the Traveler has done something and we've been like, I want to control that. I want to stop doing things that I don't expect it to do. And it makes you, again, blur that line between the light and darkness being binary representations of good and evil. And it shows like, hey, the universe is more complex. You know, in that sense, the origin story for the Witness and how it links in with the Traveler is excellent. And I think that they've nailed some of the themes of that, even down to some of the deeper aspects of how the game presents and everything in between. Like, there's good stuff in there, like really good things.
Yeah.